What's cracking, guys? Omar Esoff here, back with another video. I got a special guest, my main man, Alberto. You're here in Toronto. What's going on, my man?
Loving it, dude.
I think the more we hang out, the more similar we get.
It's contagious.
It's contagious, so contagious that we're actually talking about my favorite muscle group, the only muscle group I've ever actually developed muscle in, chest. But you're gonna hit people with something unique, something different that we haven't talked before, and that is the pec fibers themselves, how it depends upon the individual, what ultimately how they should train their chest, and that depends upon how their pec fibers look. Can you just break down what pec fibers are and how they differ person to person?
Yeah, so, and you're right, this is like never really been brought up before. Like, magazines usually rotate the same chest workout.
3x10.
Right?
Yeah.
But with this one, I thought about why, this goes back to the good old bro days. Like, you go in with your bro for like the third chest day of the week and you guys are still debating which movement you start off with, right? Yeah. He feels this one, but he doesn't feel that one. And there's perhaps a reason as to why. So if you look at how the articulation of an individual's pec fibers run, they're a little different from person to person. And this became very obvious to me from just working with bodybuilders over the years. They get super shredded to the point where
you see the fibers
comes in, yeah, and you're like, wow, so your chest zigzags this way, yours zigzags that way. I do feel that you should have perhaps an incline. You should have perhaps not an incline press or a flat or a decline, but you do have to pay attention to which way they run. Now, if you've never been shredded like a bodybuilder before, it's okay. We got you. Yeah. Basically, what feels good is what you should go with. So, for example, in my case, most of my pec fibers kind of run, they're perfect for like a decline or a dip. And I remember back in the day, a dip felt awesome when I would do it. But I felt like, no, this is naughty, this is bad, this is not acceptable.
Yeah, come on, I should be doing the incline work.
Yeah,
or whatever.
the incline or just like a flat bench press. But when I did a dip, I felt like the majority of my chest was stimulated. Get peeled a few years later, and I'm like, there it goes.
And so what do you mean when you say you respond better to dips? How are your pec fibers?
So my fibers kind of run this way, almost like in direct line with more of a decline press, sure. Right? And then you have some guys, and often the guys that like bench press the world, yeah. Like everything just goes, from their sternum to their humerus, running in this direction. Yeah. So I guess priority number one when choosing your favorite pec movement, your primary pec movement, is like what you have a firm grasp on, what doesn't hurt, what feels natural. Yep. But then where you feel the most muscle fibers like coil up, where you really feel the movement in the targeted fibers in your chest. So pick the one that you feel, that you feel.
And I think this kind of ties back to something I spoke about before, in that for me, and you took a look when it comes to my chest, that just doing the bench press, there's a lot of people where just doing the bench press isn't sufficient. Right, but for me, it's enough. Yep. Like in that I did it, I felt it every time. The next day, just in my chest. Yeah. Right.
You get upper pecs from the bench press. Like that's just how it is,
bro. Yeah. The one area I have muscle in my body. So, what would be your advice then for individuals out there? Again, you don't have to be peeled to know how your pec fibers are shaped, but going by feel, what are, I guess, then some good general recommendations to experiment when it comes to pec development? You mentioned an incline, picking some sort of incline work, which we're a big fan of, and then flat. What else?
Yeah, I'd say, you need maybe one that's leans more towards an incline, one that leans more towards a flat. But then, start like moving around a bit, see what happens if I kind of, have maybe a slight decline. Maybe that works really well. Maybe a very slight incline works really, really well.
Don't just settle for the flat bench or whatever, or a flat fly.
Yeah, or what's your bro? Like your chest day training bro might have different muscle fibers. So something worth looking at, and it kind of goes back to like your intuition. Often it is right. You know.
If you're feeling more stimulation, let's say on an incline work than on a flat, would you say then for those that are trying to figure out what's the best movement when it comes to pec development, that if you do find, let's say for you always felt it on dips, for me it would be dips, I felt the okay amount, but it'd be more maybe like low incline work for myself. Would you say once you find whatever those pec movements are, to really focus the majority of your training on those, as opposed to, we said that same thing, everyone flat benches, but maybe that's not the best for your pec development?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I look at my buddies at 3D Muscle Journey, Jeff Alberts, all his stuff is left to right, and I'm like, well, no wonder you only do one press, and that's all you need.
Yeah, all you do is the bench press, and like your chest blows up. Yeah.
So, and kind of the same thing with you. It's like your clavicular head, you might not even need an incline press, to be honest. So
one muscle group, bro.
You know, if it feels good, chances are that's the right movement for you. Yeah, I'd run with that.
Yeah, so I guess, guys, that would be maybe not an unconventional tip, but something that we haven't talked about before that I don't see talked about often enough. The individual as it relates to a movement or a muscle group, talking about pec fibers, how they cross over when it depends upon the individual. That's the explanation behind why some people could just do a flat bench press and they get great gains. Other people, you might have to change up, might have to do decline work or dips or maybe incline work, changing up a variety of different things, more isolation movements so you feel it more in that area. But it's all about, at the end of the day, what works right for you. Berto, thank you so much for being on the channel. Now in person, you did a bunch of tutorials that people loved, you know, in Colorado, filming with the camera. Now you're here. We put up all that B-roll. Where can people find you?
3dmusclejourney.com. That's the website. That's my squad. And through there, you can find access to all the stuff I put out. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we're going to link that in the description. If you like the video, if you want to see more content with Berto, make sure to like the damn video. Leave a comment below what you want to see next. And we'll be seeing all you guys, my rascals, in that next video. Peace.